Hello, everyone, and welcome to our latest edition of Radio Kart. I'm Joseph Rapp.
And I'm Nelson Ulinski. And we've got a lot of interesting stuff that has occurred in the past couple of weeks to look back upon, as well as some interesting debates, almost, as to what our favorite races of the year are.
Yes, it's going to be a fun-filled show. We've had a lot of racing over the past, after an off week. Before that, we had a lot of racing, and now kind of a little bit of a break before we head on to the next big race of the year, Nelson. Let's kind of jump in with some racing news. 61 Kartway had their KHMR race, also our Pack the Track event, which I think was fairly successful. Not as good as last year's, but fairly successful. Friends had good food, and fun was had by all. Kemp coming out on top in that race.
Yeah, no, that was all around a really fun race. As you said, maybe not as many people as we had hoped or were there last year, but I would say the quality of racers that came out and just the quality of people in general, it was a very successful event as far as who came out.
Yeah, we saw some drivers kind of shaking off rust, I think, before Elkhart in a couple weeks. I think Chad Patch was one of those. He came out and kind of had some fun with us. And then we saw a couple Margay guys, like Pete Schaefer, kind of stay over from the Ignite Challenge. Not as many as we wanted, but still it was fun to see them all. A great battle, though, between Gage Kemp and Morgan Schuler for the win. And talk about blistering lap times. I think everybody was kind of setting new personal bests last weekend.
Yeah, no, everyone was, including myself.
Yeah.
And I think that probably had a bit to do with perhaps the Margay rubber that was laid down. The weather was pretty interesting, too. It was kind of cool, so you didn't have a lot of sun that was beating down, making the track too slippery or anything.
Yeah.
And with the cooler air, that of course helped with engine power. So you kind of almost had the perfect storm as far as ideal conditions for quicker lap times.
Yeah, I think the track had just enough heat in it with the sunlight that was shining on it a little later in the day that we were able to turn some of those really quick times. To give you a reference point, Morgan Schuler turned a 50.05 second lap time, which when the 206 Cup came here, the 206 heavy class turned like a 50.5, I think it was. The all-time record is like, for racing conditions, is like a 49.8 set by Justin Wishard in the 206 medium class last year, which races at 25 pounds lighter than what we race at.
Yeah. So perfect storm, really. And yes, quite the battle between Morgan Schuler and Gage Kemp there for the win, but of course Kemp victorious. What other interesting battles did we have for other classes that day? It also seemed like we had some good showing of Yamaha drivers, which we almost never get anymore.
Yeah, there were about 3 Yamaha drivers, and I think you and me were kind of surprised. Erin's kind of switched over to the 4-cycle side. I thought we might see her bring the Yamaha out because there were a couple other drivers there, but she didn't because she wanted to focus on the 4-cycle stuff more. That's what she's transitioning into. And but it was a good turnout. Casey Jacobs, I think, another driver that was kind of knocking off the rust for Rock Island coming up here in a little while. Troy Porter was there, and then there was a junior Yamaha driver by the name of Charlie is his first name. That was racing as well. So it was good to see some of the Yamaha guys turn out.
Yeah. So with a lot of people prepping for Rock Island, I think that's looking a bit far ahead because a lot of us still have Elkhart, which is not this weekend, but the weekend right after.
Yeah, very exciting event. It'll be your first time hitting the streets of Elkhart, I believe, right?
Yes, it will be, and I'm really looking forward to it. I've watched a lot of footage. I've heard a lot of stories. Straight away, even longer than Rock Island, almost 3 city blocks in length.
Yeah.
Leading into incredibly sharp hairpin turns. It doesn't sound as technical as, say, like Quincy, which I gotta say I did enjoy the technical aspect of Quincy, but I also do like the whole aspect of who's going to be the latest breaker going into these corners. I think that's going to be kind of what you got to have to win this, aside from a good gear ratio. And I think I'm pretty good with my late braking, so we'll see how this plays out.
I think one of the things, you talk about late braking. One of the drivers I think of when I think of late braking is Alan Bontrager.
Oh, yes.
Kind of a kamikaze sometimes with the braking zone. Last year at Elkhart, he prevailed in both races because he really hammered on his brakes way later than anybody. There were a couple guys that had it figured out towards the end of the weekend, such as Garrett Powell and David Bontrager, another one from his camp.
Now, didn't Powell run a larger brake in general, though?
Yeah, he was running actually a really interesting system. You could hear him on the brakes every time he hit him at Elkhart. They were squealing really loud. So, an interesting braking system. I don't know if that's something he put on special for that event midway through because he saw how big the braking zones were, or if it's the brake package he runs all the time because he knows he's going to need to outbrake people. But definitely an important part of the track at Elkhart is getting on those brakes and making some passes when you can on it. Of course, Elkhart is a street race. There's a lot going on besides the racing, and I think you and I are probably looking forward to getting done Saturday at around 2:30, 3 o'clock, and enjoying some of the festivities. There'll, of course, be go-kart racing still going on that we can watch.
Yeah.
But there'll also be bands playing. There's a $5,000 cornhole tournament, beanbag tournament going on.
The real question, though, Joseph, will there be drinking? Will
There
there be beer?
There may be,
There may be.
It'll be an interesting weekend. I can say that.
Okay.
Battle of the Bands will be going on that night, and then fireworks also Saturday night. So, there's definitely a lot of temptations for racers to stay out late and be tired for Sunday's features. They can do that. I'm prepared. So it'll be a fun event. I think this is good kind of to lead into our discussion, though, of what our favorite...
Well, actually, before... I do want to get to that. But I was actually just thinking before that, here we are talking about street circuit races.
Yes.
And this is also part of the Triple Crown. So it kind of depends on whose Triple Crown you're almost kind of talking about here, because the Margate Ignite has already completed 2 of their races. They count the Brickyard Grand Prix, with Quincy being the first. Whereas for everyone else, it would be the Quincy Grand Prix, the Elkhart Grand Prix, and then finally Rock Island in a month to round off their Triple Crown. So why don't we go over the points and how those drivers are currently standing at the moment?
Yeah, well, right now in the Margate Ignite Senior class, we have Jeff Dolian, Keith Scarf, and Scott Sketchy Barnes at the top 3. For the Margate Racing, and Scott Barnes is kind of a name I think we both recognize from Rock Island. I believe he's the guy from Bermuda, is he not? That races a couple of different classes.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure, but I thought that was him. So those are our top 3 for the Margate Ignite Senior class. Now the Briggs and Stratton 206 heavy class here, Nelson. It's kind of wacky.
You were telling me about this before the show. They kind of had some issues almost with putting these results in.
So Michael Welsh, Alan Bontrager, and Nick Oakenfels are the 3 current drivers listed as leading the points for the Triple Crown. The issue is there are a lot of drivers that did not get signed up for the Triple Crown before Quincy because they put it up so late on the registration page. And so Tony Nielsen and Jeff Scott are going to be 2 drivers that finished ahead of these guys that are going to sign up for the Triple Crown. And they're going to get credit points-wise, I think, for finishing where they did at Quincy. If that's the case, I believe we'll see Tony Nielsen and Jeff Scott at the top, Michael Welsh in 3rd, and then Alan Bontrager and Nick Oakenfels will be further down.
Yeah.
That'll also affect guys later on down in the points, like myself, who I think I'm currently sitting 4th. I would be sitting way further down with just 1 point.
Yeah. However, though, even though you do say that 4th with 1 point, we're also discussing the point system here.
Yeah.
Whereas that's 6 point for a win, 5 point for second, and so on down to 5th.
Yeah.
And then 6th and back get 1 point.
Yeah.
So essentially 6th and back, everyone's essentially tied for position with only 1 point.
But I think the intention there, Nelson, is to give you credit for at least starting the race.
Yes.
Where guys who sign up for a Triple Crown but maybe don't go to all 3 events will get 0 points if they don't show up to one.
Yeah, the European Le Mans Series actually runs a very similar point system. Yep. They give out regular points to the top 10, and for simply starting a race, you get half a point.
Yep.
So this is not unheard of in the world of motorsport.
Yeah, and another really interesting thing about the points system, Nelson, is that it gives you a chance all the way till Rock Island to win this Triple Crown, depending on how people do. If Tony Nielsen, Jeff Scott, Michael Welsh, Alan Bontrager, if they have a bad weekend in Quincy, and you sign up for the Triple Crown and going into Elkhart and win the race, you're all of a sudden tied, maybe, potentially, for the Triple Crown lead.
Yeah, which this point system is not the best for a general championship, but this isn't really a general championship. No. This is just an incentive to get people to sign up for these races.
Yeah.
Which, if that is its purpose, this is a very well-crafted point system. It's going to do its job. Mm-hmm. It's not going to really screw people who aren't part of it out of racing hard, but it'll kind of offer a little extra for those going for this quote-unquote championship of these 3 races.
Yeah, and I think what I'm really excited is that it gets to end in our probably favorite race of the year, Nelson, the Rock Island. Well, there's a certain home aspect feel to it.
Okay,
maybe
in our
not
home,
our favorite race,
but in our backyard, in our home, yes, yeah.
Anyway, going through the rest of the Triple Crown here, Yamaha Heavy, Todd Bolton, Mike Dittmer, and Michael Welsh are the 3 in that. Again, Tony Nielsen will probably sign up, and I think he'll fall somewhere in that top 3, dropping one of them out.
So this is all kind of like tentative, that this probably will change, so don't take our word for this.
The 125cc open shifter class, I had no idea who all was planning on running this, but currently Alex Collin, Scott Sketchy Barnes, and Aaron Bromberg are the top 3 in the points for Triple Crown there, and I don't think we're too surprised to see a couple of those names on there. Very fast drivers I've heard of before in the shifter class. So definitely interesting opening to the Triple Crown. We don't exactly know where everybody sits, but we have kind of an idea.
Yeah.
Kind of want to ask you, Nelson, who do you got favorited for this Triple Crown if you had to pick someone to win it?
Well, I gotta say to win it, probably Tony Nielsen, which I know that's an easy one to go out and say, but my thinking here is we saw how well he did at Quincy.
Yep.
Even if he's not that great at Elkhart, we know how he tends to dominate at Rock Island.
Yeah.
So it's like with this point system that they have awarding excellence in the top 5, if he can even just hold on in the top 5 there and win Rock Island, he'll probably end up winning the Triple Crown. So, yeah, as far as the Briggs & Stratton 206 Heavy, my vote goes to Tony.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I was astonished how quickly he picked up on the Quincy track. I think we won't see anything different at Elkhart in terms of how fast he picks up. He may not win maybe as much. There's going to be a lot of other competitive guys there, I think, at Elkhart.
And that track is just so different from Rock Island and Quincy as well.
And then Rock Island, like you said, he's pretty good there. The guy he butts heads with there normally is Cal Stewart, who isn't competing in the Triple Crown. So Tony could still get first place Triple Crown points if he does well at Rock Island. And there's so many other competitors at Rock Island that can kind of throw a wild card into the mix in terms of where he finishes, but I think definitely in terms of Triple Crown competitors, he'll probably be the best of them.
Yeah, and I just want to throw in for Yamaha Heavy, I think probably I'm going to put my money on Mike Dittmer, actually.
Really?
He seems very hungry this year. We saw how he charged through the field in the sprint race on Saturday at Quincy, and we've seen how well he's been racing at Davenport as well. So I really don't think it's going to be unexpected to see him at Rock Island challenging to win this mini championship.
I think definitely the Yamaha Heavy class is more open right now than I would say the Briggs 206 Heavy class is. There's so many guys that are just so close in that class all the time, like Dittmer, Bolton, and Welsh that are in the top 3 right now. and especially at Rock Island where the draft plays such a huge role in who wins that race.
Yeah.
If you end up in the wrong spot, you may not be able to come back from it and get the points. So,
which that's true, but hey, here's my thinking and part of the reason why I say Dittmer. He's done that race so many times.
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing. He's not the type of driver to put himself he's not the type of driver to put himself in a position where he's going to get screwed over in the draft. He will be able to work that out and at least get up towards the front.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a good pick. I'm still, for now, I'm going to keep Tony Nielsen as my pick for that class. And I think between Dittmer, Welsh, and Tony Nielsen, I think those are three drivers that definitely have a shot to win it. Bolton, I know he's on top right now, and we're really not talking about him, but, it's wide open in that class still. My favorite is still Nielsen just because of the amount of experience he has at these tracks, and he got a couple wins in the Yamaha class last year at Elkhart, so that's why I'm going to stick with him for now.
Yeah.
As far as Triple Crown underdogs go, if you had to pick an underdog you thought maybe he was going to kind of sneak up out of nowhere in the brakes class, who do you think possibly would be that guy?
Well, I'm not sure how much of an underdog you can call him because in the tentative standings he's listed as being third.
Yeah.
But I would have to say Nick Ockenfels. And my reasoning there is that if you're ever at the track with him, you'll really see how much of like an engineer's mind that he has.
Yeah.
How methodical he is in his approach to not just how he races, but how he sets up the kart. So I don't think it's entirely unexpected to maybe see him have like an aha moment with the setup or something, and then suddenly be up there challenging with Tony and the regular front runners at Elkhart and Rock Island.
Yeah, I definitely, I think I have to agree with you there. Nick is definitely a favorite. I think, though, for my underdog, and he's also in the point standings right now, but I'm going to go with Alan Bontrager. He's, I believe, at these street races, he's partnering with Bromberg Racing Team to kind of give him some more help when he comes off the track.
Okay.
So we saw that at Quincy. He finished.
I was actually not aware of that alliance.
Yeah, so he finished pretty well at Quincy. He dominated at Elkhart last year. I mean, blew the field away in the first race, and not so much in the second race, but still won. And so I think with the kahunas on this guy with the braking zones, he's going to have a shot to win at Elkhart. And then you're sitting looking pretty interesting for Rock Island, but the problem is I don't really like him at Rock Island because I don't think he performs as well in the draft as some of our local guys.
Yeah, now two things I have to say about your pick there. And while I somewhat am very tempted to change based on what you're saying, I'm not saying that you should be disqualified from picking him or anything, but we're talking about pairing with Bromberg Racing, which is arguably a very large team.
Yeah.
With a lot of technical expertise. So, in that regard, in my definition anyways, I don't think it's necessarily fair to call him an underdog. I mean, go ahead and pick him. I'm just saying, in my book, I don't think I could give him that title as being an underdog.
I think...
Because with Nick, on the other hand, he goes there with his dad. He doesn't really have anyone else that is actively part of the team to help. And even then, it's usually him, not his dad, making his calls on the setup.
Yeah. And if I was going to defend my pick here as why he's an underdog, because I think it's Tony Nielsen versus the field. I'll take Tony Nielsen. You can have the field. How about that?
I see.
I think
that's fair.
Everybody else is almost an underdog, I think, in the 206 class. Yamaha, like we were saying,
it's a lot tighter.
It's a lot tighter. But I think in the 206 class, Tony Nielsen, his closest competition would probably be Jeff Scott if he gets signed up for the Triple Crown, which we haven't talked a lot about. But obviously, with neither of them being signed up, it's kind of hard to talk about him and give him a shot at it. So that's our Triple Crown picks.
Yeah, which I gotta say, we were able to talk a lot more about that than I thought, to be honest. I thought okay, here's your points. Here's your points leader. Here's why this isn't going to be official right now and stuff.
Yeah.
No, great segment. On the topic of points, like I know we have that thing that we keep alluding to as to our favorite races, but well, I think before we get into that, we should talk about results from the Memorial Race, or perhaps the results from the Summer Series at Davenport Kartway. Your call. What would you want to do first?
Well, let's start out with the championship points here at 61. They're not updated to the last race, but they're updated, I think, far enough where we can kind of get people.
The general picture has been painted. Yes.
Obviously, Gage Kemp leads, which I believe after last week, and he now has the most wins over Chad Peppers. And then it's myself second, and then interesting third place driver there, Nelson. I don't know if we really expected to see Max up so high in the field.
But he's credited as having a second place finish during the double points race.
Yeah.
Which I'm not trying to discredit his talent or anything. I'm just saying that was an awful lot of points he picked up in that race.
And then it's yourself in fourth, and Kenneth Johnston sits fifth. This really, rewarding winning here. Chad Peppers still sits in sixth. He's competed in only 4 events, but in 3 of those 4 he won.
I actually think he was absent at the Memorial Race, right?
Yes.
Okay. With his absence and the gap between him and Aaron Dunn, I actually think Aaron Dunn is up to 6th in the championship standings. But still, 7th is nothing to sneak. Oh, no. Actually, Morgan Schuler is there, too.
Probably passes
okay,
him as well.
fine. Chad Peppers is down to 8th. But still, we've had how many? We've had 22 people race generally, which that's damn good still.
Yeah. So he's still up there pretty high in the points for having missed so many races. I expect we'll probably see him come back for a race or 2 at the end of this season as well.
If anything, hold on. Do you know if he plans on doing kart at all?
I would believe so. He signed up for the Triple Crown.
All right. Well, in that case, it actually wouldn't surprise me to see him there
this weekend.
This weekend, yeah.
Kind of looking at our race 9 results, our Pack the Track results to help, kind of see how this points picture is going to change.
Yeah.
Gage Kemp won, so he'll continue to lead. He actually extends his lead over second.
He did win, but isn't this usually my thing going over the results?
Yes.
All right. So, we did have Gage Kemp, as we keep discussing here, take the win, which Morgan Schuler finished second after quite the interesting battle. And they only had less than 2/10 of a gap between these two. That's how close, even at the end, these 2 karts were. Then Radio Kart's very own Joseph Rapp rounded out the podium about 6 seconds back. And after recovering from an early spin in the race, myself in 4th place. Now, Chad Patch, who we really haven't seen that much, came out to the track and got himself a top 5 finish.
Yep.
Aaron Dunn got 6th, which isn't really that representative of the type of speed that kart and that driver have been having as of late.
I think if we were going to kind of categorize her finish a couple weeks ago, Nelson, she had that stellar week where she was up at the front of the field and should have won the race, I think, in all of our opinion. And then it was almost like her kart was so aggressive on tires, or she used them up so much in practice that she kind of fell back lap time-wise. And then she went back to being about a 6th, 7th place kart. So we'll have to keep an eye on her, I think.
I think it's just a matter of tires, because if you set them up in a certain way, these Hoosiers will barely last any more than 2 race weekends.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've seen people stretch them out for 5, 6, maybe even 7.
Yeah.
But it's just how you use them, and I think she might be a bit of an over-aggressive driver.
Yeah, and you have to drive the way you drive. Not a whole lot you can do about that. We'll continue to watch her and see how.
But also then, so going on with the results, Pete Schaefer, who we haven't seen at all really much this year. He used to be a regular last year for the most part.
Towards the end of the year.
Right, towards the end of last year, he kind of became a regular. 7th, Maximus Geitzenauer bringing it home a lap down in 8th. And Kenneth Johnston being credited with a did not finish after completing 8 laps, and John Shaw not starting the feature in 10th, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and, I think you mentioned Pete Schaefer. He was there for race 8, so he did have a little bit of practice under his belt. He, too, was going through some tire issues with the tires cording. So that kind of dropped his lap time off of where it was about a week ago.
Yeah, but still, good to see him back out here. A lot of people that we haven't seen in a while back out there. So, like I said, not maybe the numbers we want to see, but the type of people we got, I would consider that to be a very successful packed track.
Oh, yeah, very competitive field.
Yeah.
Now I think moving on to Davenport Kartway, we'll talk about some of the point standings and the finish of the Summer Series and who won that, Nelson.
Yeah, so gonna do Kid Kart here, because they don't really have points there, you know. Yeah. So Kid Kart had 3 competitors over the course of the year here: Thierry Pavalones, Owen Metzger, and Celie Adams. All 3 of these drivers showed tremendous improvement over the course of these 3 races. Some close battles at some point. Some may have been faster, but for the purpose of what Kid Kart is, some very competitive racing between these 3.
Yeah, it was very, very fun to watch them on the Wednesday night event go at it head-to-head.
Yeah. So in Yamaha Rookie, we had a total of 4 competitors over the course of this 3-weekend series. Jack Moore with a perfect season, winning all 3 races. Easton Smith with 505 points in second. Ari Goodwin rounds out the top 3, and Isaac Westerhoff, the last driver in Yamaha Rookie.
Yeah, that was also a fun class to watch when they kind of caught lap traffic every once in a while. It would get dicey at times, but a learning class for those guys like we had talked about last time we were on air.
Yeah. So then moving on to Briggs Cadet now. Nicholas Peppers with yet again another perfect series, or perfect season, I guess.
Does that really surprise us then? No.
Not really, with 600. Christopher James with 525 points. And Aiden Feller, who I don't think was there for all the races, with only 310.
Yeah, and of course, we're not surprised by Nicholas Peppers.
Yeah.
Obviously, his dad, Chad, very good racer, and Nicholas seems to be heading in the same path of being very successful in racing.
Now, I would like to see Nick Peppers up when he's older, racing against the regulars in Junior 2 and even Senior at 61, because I really feel like he could give like Bryce Shaw a run for his money in Junior 2.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that would be fun to see. Or him and Gage Kemp in Senior.
Oh, yeah.
When Nick is older. That definitely a driver with a very bright future.
How about
ahead.
father versus son when he gets up to Senior?
Okay, yeah. I'm just thinking drivers in his age demographic, I guess. Younger drivers that we know have a very established career that he would be racing against soon. Yamaha Junior. Charlie Moore wins that, with Josh Carlson being the only other driver in second.
When these 2 were on track together, they put on some good battles. Nelson, very close lap time-wise between them. Yeah,
and very close on track, too. Despite being only 2 karts, they really did have some very intense battles, especially on the oval. Briggs Jr., speaking of Bryce Shaw, he wins that with a near perfect series, getting only 575 points. Logan Graham in second, and Kayla Carlson in third.
Yeah, I know Kayla really wanted to go out there and win in the first race she competed in for the Summer Series. She was undefeated, I think, at that point at Davenport in the junior class. But she had a good couple races. She didn't compete in the first one, so a good couple of races, though, for her.
Yeah, so then in Yamaha Cadet, we had Casey Williams win every single race, and Branson Benningfield in second. And I don't think he competed in every single race. He missed at least one of them.
Yep.
And then, I guess, what do you think should cover first? Yamaha Senior or Briggs Senior?
Well,
I'll let you decide that, Joseph. What should I go over first here?
I think the top 5 in Briggs Senior would be a good place to start.
Okay, so just for context here, a lot of these have only had about maybe 3 or 4, some of them 5 entries in the series. This Briggs Senior, over the course of all 3 races, had a total of 12 drivers compete, so very successful for this category.
Yeah.
Matt Payway, we'll do the top 10 here. So Matt Payway in 5th, Gage Kemp, only 15 points ahead of him. A very intense battle between those 2 points-wise. Joshua Skelly in third. He it was quite fun to watch on the oval layout.
Yep.
And Mike Welsh with 485 points in second. And, of course, Chad Peppers brought home the grand prize of $500 with 540 points.
I think good note here, too, Matt Payway did not compete in all 3 races, so for him to finish as high as he did was
that's a good point. Yeah, I didn't realize that, actually.
He did not compete in the last of the 3 races.
Okay. Still, yeah, so excellent result for him at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And then the Yamaha Senior, which as intense and interesting as the Briggs was, I think Yamaha kind of left us on the edge of our seats watching that a lot, because that was kind of like what you're saying with the Triple Crown, kind of up for grabs for the most part between a lot of these drivers.
Yeah, you had quite a few drivers up there battling for the win.
Yeah, so and it kind of gets tighter up more you go. So I'll do top 5 yet again, even though we had 8 in total. Mason Aschenbach was 5th with only 240 points, but the top 4 are incredibly tight with only 140 points separating them. Dustin Blom got 4th with Mike Dittmer, 450, tied for second, actually, with Brant Carter, who also had 450 points. Mike Welsh won the $500 in Yamaha Senior.
Yep. And he finished with 540 points, which is, 90 points ahead of the other 2 guys, which doesn't look close. But going into that race, Nelson, I think they were separated by like 25 points or something.
Yeah, going into that race, it was almost a matter of that top 4. Yep. Whoever won that race would win the 500. It was almost to that point.
Yep. And so that concludes the Summer Series. I think it'll be something we're looking forward to covering again next year. Nelson. It was a fun event. Something different to do on a Wednesday night in the middle of the season. I think the only thing drivers kind of had to complain about, the second oval race, I think they would have liked to have seen the road course come back. I think they're fine with the oval, but one oval in the 3 races, I think, is what a majority of drivers would like to see. A lot of the junior drivers wanted that second oval race, but not so many of the senior drivers did.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking it might be more interesting, and I think this might, I don't know the details, but of course, it's been said that the track is going to be reconfigured after the fair.
Yep.
So I'm not wondering if maybe what they should do next year, actually, have, say, like 2 kind of road course layouts, like a long Grand Prix one that's normally used, and then, say, like a sprint layout. Start the championship on the sprint layout, do the oval race for the second one, and then finish it on the longer Grand Prix track.
Yeah. And, I think that's a pretty good idea, Nelson. It will be interesting to see how they change the track after the fair. I know they're thinking of changing the angles of some straights and whatnot. So
I heard there would be, like, almost an entirely new straightaway almost.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't really have the issue of running onto the street.
Yeah.
So, no, it'll be really interesting to see how exactly the tracks change, and we'll get back to you on that when we get more information.
And it'll be awesome to see how drivers adapt to those changes in the midst of a points battle at Davenport Kartway for their season championship.
Yep, so I think that wraps up our kind of like a points segment almost.
So I think now we should head into kind of, we were talking about a lot of events earlier, talking about Quincy, Elkhart, and Rock Island with the Triple Crown, but kind of leads us well into what our favorite events of the year may be. And Nelson, I think I'll let you start off with this one with what you think your favorite event of the year is.
Okay, so are we just doing like general annual event here, or like my favorite event of 2018 thus far?
Your favorite event to go to. So
to go to. Okay, I got you.
To have happened yet.
Okay. Well, in that case, even though I've only ever done it once, I would have to say it's a tie between 2 events, actually. And that would be the Quincy Grand Prix, which, that's kind of understandable, what with the history and all. But for me, it's more about the fact that the track is so technical as far as both kart setup and driver ability, but it also places a really, really big emphasis on bravery and courage. It's almost like the perfect challenge, almost, you could say. So it's kind of like the Nordschleife. You got to have a good car to go around there fast. You got to be able to understand the track yourself, and you can't be too scared to go fast through some of those corners.
Yeah. Quincy's definitely a fast track.
Yeah. Now, my other event, too, which I know we're kind of talking about, street circuits and that type of thing, but my second favorite event...
I know where this is going.
Where is it going, Joseph?
Just continue. I know where this is going.
The Halloween Grand Prix.
Yeah.
Yeah, which that's kind of because as far as the 206 racing goes, endurance events are kind of a rarity, almost. You don't have that many of them, and you don't have that many of them in this area, even. So to have something like this, especially so late in the year... it's just all around a really interesting challenge because, for me anyways, it's a track that I don't regularly visit. On top of that, it's mixed class racing because you got to deal with Yamaha's tags when they show up as well, and they even have the junior drivers on track as well.
Yep.
And then, other than all these competitors, it's usually colder. Last year, it got down to a chilling 38 degrees.
It snowed at one point.
It did snow,
last year.
And there was no cloud. It was all cloudy, so there was no sunlight.
Yep.
So not only were you racing the competitors, you were racing the weather too, basically, because I soloed that race. That's the other thing, too. Being an endurance race, it can be split, but I soloed it.
Yeah.
My fingers didn't really want to move during the last 10 laps. And then on top of all that, of course, with it being an endurance race, if you have tags in the field, it's 100 laps, about a minute lap average. With how fast those tags are, it actually ends up being almost an hour and a half race for the Briggs drivers.
It's funny you brought that race up, Nelson, because that's probably one of my favorite events as well.
But you wouldn't hold it in as high regard as I do?
I would hold it probably close to... I mean, I love that race. I love the aspect of being able to do something different. I wish, actually, that we were able to do a race like that a little earlier in the year when it wasn't so cold, so we could get a better turnout. But I think the reason it's at the end of the year is because they know, not as many people are doing other racing. And if you're going to choose a sprint race versus an endurance race, for most people, they'd choose the sprint race every single time.
And I think the other aspect of it, too, is that you have so many opportunities to break stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of like sprockets and chain guards.
That's 2 years ago, okay?
My point is...
Don't dwell on the past.
My point is, though, is that in an endurance race, you have a much higher likelihood of things being broken. And it's cheaper to do that at the end of the year going into the off-season, so you don't have to rush to get ready for the next race or the rest of the races of that year.
Yeah, definitely one of my favorite races, too. Last year... we both spun out a couple of times. You had smaller slides than I did.
Yeah.
But
I was able to at least keep it on the track.
Yeah. If you would have looked at that race, everybody spun out at one point. If you would have been mistake-free, you could have run as probably a second off the pace. If you wouldn't have made a mistake the whole race, you would have won.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the great things about endurance racing is it really strives you to keep your focus, especially in a 100-lap race like that. Talking to my dad after that race and a couple other people, they said, you and me both, because we were doing the whole 100 laps, we were kind of starting to do the dead man flop over in the turns, or we were the cart was just shoving us out to the edge, right? And we had been in the cart so long, we were just kind of trying to survive the rest of the way. But that's what I like about that endurance race. I know some people split it. Which I think is great for the team aspect of racing. I think, that's a lot of fun to do, too. We did it one year. Obviously, it wasn't as fun for us because I messed up on
and the weight was weird, too, because, we had such a weight difference at the time.
Yeah.
So, when I got on the cart, I had almost, 50 excess pounds with all the fuel I had in there, too.
But it was... It's a fun event, no matter how you slice it, I think. They have the hot dog Coke race that they do. Yeah. And, the only thing we always ask for that race, it could just be a little warmer. It could just be 10 degrees warmer. It'd be fun.
So are you saying that is your favorite event of the year, then?
It would be close. I think the street races for me probably all trump that. But if I was going to choose one of the street races and one other event, that would probably be the other event that I would definitely, want to go to. The street races, I think, are just an awesome time because I get to see everybody from the karting community too.
Yeah.
Is probably another reason for that. My favorite event of the year is actually coming up, and that's the Elkhart Grand Prix. I had a blast at this race last year, Nelson. There were 10,000 fans there over the course of the weekend. Saturday, the park hill was packed with people. It was cool to come down the front straightaway with all those people watching you and race. This year, they're going to have a rolling start, so we get to start in front of the fans, which I'm hoping works out well. But I just love that event. The tight hairpins put, the racing into drivers' hands. So, if you can't outbrake somebody, you will. But it doesn't take the draft completely out of the picture because there's a 3-block long straight. The backside is pretty long. And then there's like a 90-degree corner, kind of like a little bit tighter. So you kind of have that aspect of Rock Island in it. You have a hair, like I said, the braking zone, kind of like Quincy on that last corner had. I think it's really the best of both worlds for me in terms of street racing. It's not as technical of a track as Quincy is, but you still have to have a good handling kart. You go to Rock Island, there's probably 15 karts that could win the race because they all handle decently.
Yeah.
You go to Elkhart, you still need to have a pretty good handling kart to get through those hairpins and through the backside of the track. So. And then I just like how much of it is in the driver's hands. I think, that's kind of why I like the Halloween Grand Prix is 100 laps. The driver has so much to do with who wins that race. Like I said, no mistakes, you'll win the race. Elkhart last year, if you can use the draft to your advantage and not lose any ground at any point during the race, you have a good shot to win it.
Yeah, which I just find it interesting that you're saying, driver emphasis for the Halloween Grand Prix. You also have a huge point to the mechanics as well, because you got to make sure everything is clamped down securely if you're going to last all 100 laps.
Yeah.
You cannot have a loose muffler. You cannot have a loose engine mount. You cannot have a loose chain.
Yep.
You can't have a loose anything. So not only is it a matter of how consistent can your driver be, but how good is your mechanic, or in that case, that same person that's the driver, be at making sure the kart can last for that long.
I guess, if I was going to put another reason why Elkhart is one of my favorite races here, just really quick, they had an endurance race last year on the street course, which was fun to watch. I wish I was in it, but it was like an hour and a half race. It was originally scheduled to be 2 hours. They got to the hour and a half mark, and they were like, hey, this is getting kind of long. But I thought it was pretty cool to watch. At one point, Alan Bontrager was looking over the side of his engine like something was going on, didn't 100% know. I think afterwards he said he was having a fuel pickup issue, but that was cool to watch, especially on a street race because you have to be so much more patient than you would have to be on a regular sprint course.
Yeah.
The other thing is, Saturday, as drivers at Elkhart, we have a lot of time to go watch. For the Briggs drivers and the Yamaha guys, we had a lot of time to go and watch the shifter categories race, or even go partake in the festivities and, watch the Battle of the Bands this year, the Cornhole Tournament, or the RC car course, or whatever. There's just so much to do around the event, and Rock Island, we never really have a break in the schedule to go and do that unless you race in only 1 or 2 classes, and maybe you do, but definitely, probably, those are the reasons why Elkhart is my favorite event, probably.
Yeah, and I just want to say on the topic of like street circuits and endurance racing, I feel as if almost a timed race of 30 or 40 minutes would actually be ideal, because it's long enough to get that whole endurance factor of it, but at the same time short enough that it doesn't get boring or really have to worry about there being too much carnage.
Yeah, I think if you look at the length of the Halloween Grand Prix, it ends up normally being about an hour, 15 hour and a half race, right?
It's about an hour and a half,
Yeah. For street racing, you can definitely go a little bit shorter because there's walls and such to run into. And so I'd have to agree with you. About 40, 50 minutes, probably like a 50-lap race versus a 100-lap race would probably be more of an optimal distance for those drivers to go. So
I'm just kind of got this idea stuck in my head now: a 30-minute timed race around Rock Island.
Oh, that would not be good.
Yeah.
But no, speaking of elk kart and kind of interesting events, they won't have the endurance race this year, Nelson. But they will have an event to replace that, and it's going to be a relay race. Not a whole lot of details on how exactly it's going to work.
I've kind of heard that, but it didn't, I don't know. I guess I didn't look into it enough. It didn't make much sense to me, though, to be honest.
So it's supposed to be a relay race with a 125cc shifter kart, a Yamaha kart, a brakes kart, and I believe maybe there's either a vintage kart or an 80cc shifter kart in there or something like that.
Okay.
And the relay race is so it's an 80cc shifter kart. It's supposed to be 5 laps per kart, so totaling 20 laps. I don't know how this is going to work at all. But it seems like it'll be interesting.
So are you supposed to split this then? Like, are you supposed to find a team of like 3 other people that have those carts then and like team up for this?
That's exactly what you're supposed to do. So, I don't know how the race works, because if you get a shifter guy out there at the same time as a Briggs guy, that's just scary.
Yep.
So, it'll be interesting to see. Maybe there'll be a baton we have to hold on to and then throw or something.
Oh, yay. Throwing objects from a cart. Yeah.
I'll be excited to watch it. I will not be partaking in it, but I'll be excited to watch it.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun. Well, anything else about elk kart you're looking forward to, maybe, or any other events that you look forward to?
Well, I think to me the intrigue of elk kart is going to be the crowds, because I look at the track and I really, really should hold off judgment until I race on it. But to be entirely honest, looking at the track, it just seems kind of straightforward, almost like you have these long straightaways and you have hairpins and you have a few turns on the back section. Which I know I'll probably be like, oh my gosh, this is so scary when I'm actually doing it and stuff. But compared to, say, like Quincy or, say, Rock Island even, which I know Rock Island is even more basic. But the general idea of Rock Island is that you have to deal with this draft and stuff. And not just on a straight, but for the entire, all the way around the track, that you're in traffic and stuff. So it's like the track itself isn't really exciting me that much, but the crowd. I keep hearing about how big the crowd is.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to seeing how, the support for this race.
Yeah, and, to give you a little insider information here, there are already, I believe, 30 drivers signed up for the Briggs class at elk kart. Last year, there were only 20 drivers in the Briggs class, so already a bigger field for that class than there was last year, which will make for some more exciting racing and probably more chaos going into the first turn.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how the rolling start works. Fun story for you here, though. So the track is a fairly simple layout, right? Well, me and a couple other drivers last year, they don't close the streets off at elk kart until late Friday night. So you don't really get as good of an opportunity to do a track lap walk like you do at Rock Island or Quincy.
Yeah, okay.
So a couple of us hadn't been able to do a full track walk, and so we had to go out for first practice, kind of blind to some parts of the track. You'd seen it kind of driving around. They kind of talked to you about it, so you kind of knew what to expect. But there were probably about 5, maybe 6 drivers in first practice that went in the last hairpin on the track, and we didn't know it was there. And so we overdrove the corner. I believe Mike Dimmer was one of the drivers, along with myself, that went in the corner and came off the track, and we were like, yeah. Almost crashed, first turn on the track, because I didn't know it was there. So, it'll be fun. Just thought I'd share that funny story with you. Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting weekend. We're looking forward to it. But first, we got to get through one more club race, Nelson, and
yep.
Then we'll be on our way. I believe that about wraps up our show for today. Anything else we're gonna?
No, I think that's gone over everything. We've gone over the Summer Series results. We've gone over the recent 61 club results as well as the championship point standings.
Yep.
We talked about the Triple Crown. Looked ahead to kart. Kind of discussed our favorite events. That's all we've got, folks.
So until next time, so long, everybody. I'm Joseph.
I'm Nelson, and have fun at the track.